There's no such thing as going back to square one. Even if you feel like you're having to start over, you are only trying again with more knowledge, strength, and power than you had before. Your journey was never over, it was just waiting for you to find it again. Author unknown. Happy New Year, y'all. My name is Angelica Lamas, and you stumbled onto my podcast, The Rare Queen Out of the Blue. Hello again. My name's Angie, and this is my podcast, The Rare Queen Out of the Blue. And by the time this airs, it will officially be 2022, and I'll be starting over my first full year as a divorced woman. If this is your first time listening or the first time listening since my relaunch, you're probably curious about all the details. Please go back and listen to my prologue episode that dropped last week, pre-New Year, because I really don't want to rehash all the sort of details, because 2022 for me is about moving forward and not looking back at negativity. With that being said, I want to talk to you guys starting this new year with talking about decluttering. Yep, decluttering. It's not just about your stuff, it's about yourself. So let's talk about it. To start the year off right and to build something good, you need to begin with a great solid foundation, starting with developing good daily habits, y'all. The first good daily habit should be starting with cleaning up the space you live in. You need to set up your environment for success. I've actually been doing this. So this means like clearing the space where you spend most of your time of the clutter, the trash, the chaos, because you know what they say, chaos breeds chaos, everybody. When I first relocated, I didn't have much space because I was living in a small fifth wheel trailer in the middle of nowhere. That's because I walked away with pretty much nothing. I had to rely on my mom to shuttle my stuff to me in boxes as it kind of came or as we found it, because I did have some stuff in storage at my mom's, but mainly stuff that Dean was sending to me, and I didn't have room for it at the time for the stuff, so I had to go through it as I was going through the boxes, which meant a serious purging process, going through clothes that really didn't fit anymore and other things. This was kind of like, you know, the Marie Kondo idea of getting rid of things, asking myself, does this bring joy? I know, but before you tune me out thinking, okay, Angie, I don't want to hear a bunch of new age psychobabble, mumbo jumbo. I'm gonna take a really serious deep dive into the concept of joy and how joy and decluttering kind of go hand in hand. So just bear with me, because this is not just, again, like I said, about stuff as much as yourself and the people around you in your circle. Hold on a second, my dog, Bandit, come on, lay down. Okay, we're starting with stuff and we're going to be progressing to yourself. So put yourself in a place to kind of listen and why this is important. There are 5 key concepts that we're going to apply to the question, does this bring you joy? So number 1, joy is a simple yet powerful concept. When looking at your things, ask yourself, does this item spark a memory, a feeling, a joy, or does it make me hesitate? Like, does it make me feel guilty? Of all things, does this thing make me feel guilty? Joy is a simple filter we can apply to a lot of things in our lives. Clothes, furniture, food, and even other life choices. Because we know joy when we feel it. It's a strong and vibrant feeling and emotion. Joy is one of those things that you just can't replace or can't exchange for something else. My friend and I talk a lot and to each other quite a bit, and we make each other laugh. And there's occasion where it's just like, you're just a person in my life who brings me extreme joy. And when I was sorting through my stuff and going through stuff and we were purging and things, I had to look at my stuff and say, does this bring me joy? Does this make me happy? Like, does it make me smile? Are there negative feelings attached to it? Does it make me feel guilty that I bought it? Does it make me feel guilty about leaving my husband? Does it make me feel guilty about just it existing in general? That leads us into number 2. There are different ways to bring joy. I mean, think about it. For instance, take that hot little red dress that you may have bought like a year ago, or those TikTok leggings you've never worn, but you finally found. When you finally found them, you got all excited from the thrill of the hunt. You know, it's kind of like when I'm looking for a pageant gown and you try on like 100, and you have this concept in your mind, and you're just looking and you're looking and you're looking, and then you try on that one and you get so excited. It's because of the thrill of the hunt. And now that you've got it, now that you found it, now that maybe you've worn it once, maybe it served that momentary purpose of temporary joy for you. But now it's time to say goodbye, because you had that moment of joy, and all that sort of stuff, the hunt and finding it, then maybe wearing it once, and now you just look at it and you're like, it was so exciting to find it. I really, it was great and all, but there's like no attachment to it. This same concept applies for other aspects in your life. And guess what? People in your life also. At one point, the thing or the person brought you joy and a purpose. And now, not so much. It's time to set it or them free without guilt. That's true. I mean, if the thing is not bringing you joy, if it's not bringing you happiness, there's no reason to have it. So, decluttering my closet and things, like I lost a lot of weight, and, some outfits and things didn't fit. And I just started, I have no purpose for having them anymore. They don't fit. And so I needed to set them free and set them go. And so I actually started bagging stuff up and sending it to ThredUp to consign. It's the same as for people. At some point, there are some people in your life that serve a purpose. And if they're no longer bringing joy in your life, it's time to set them free and let them go. So let's talk about number 3. Number 3. Referring back to number 1. Number 3 is we don't hang on to things or people. We hang on to the emotions attached to them. Some things or even people are easy to purge. There's no memory attached to them, like I was saying. There's no emotion. But others, like that shirt you were wearing when you met someone, or maybe you were going through a rough something the last time you wore it. And even though you haven't worn it in years, heck, it probably doesn't even fit you like most of the things in my closet did anymore. But seeing it sparks a feeling, a memory, and you hang on to it because of that feeling that it invokes. But toss it out. Toss out that item and let go of the clutter. And the good memory, if it was a good memory, it's still going to be there with you. And you'll be surprised at the sense of freedom and relief, because you no longer find yourself bound to that item or that person. And here's the thing, like in my case, a lot of times that thing or that person is a symbol of a negative time or a negative transition, and there's just no need to be carrying it around with you anymore. When I looked at a lot of my clothes and what I had, they didn't express me. They weren't my style. They reminded me of a negative time and a negative part of my life that I didn't want anymore. And letting go of those clothes, yes, they were too big and too frumpy. And you know what? In some ways, when I bought them, they were too big and too frumpy because they weren't my style. I was made to feel like I needed to hide myself and be very behind the scenes and not seen. Going through my closet and looking at my clothes, they didn't spark a good feeling of joy. They didn't make me feel good about myself. All of that. So they needed to go. And once I let go of that, I let go of some of that negativity. And it just like a weight was lifted. And that goes into number 4. Number 4 is fewer things you love is better than many things that you just kind of like. Quality over quantity. I tell my friend this all the time when he's talking about spending time with his kids, and unfortunately, he has to split time with their moms and everything else, and he feels like he doesn't spend enough time with them, and we have to have a long talk a lot of times that the time is not how much time. Sometimes it's the quality of the time. It's what are you doing when you spend the time? How are you enjoying the time? How are they enjoying the time? It's the quality over the quantity. Always in life, think quality over quantity. So take that dress that you saw on your favorite show. You really liked it, right? And it was the epitome of your inner fashionista. It just is that fantasy idea of perfect. It's nice. You like it, but do you need it? Do you need it in every color? Would you actually wear it? Last of all, would it bring you joy? Maybe for a moment, but here's what I found when I purged my closet is that the things that I kept, I know I love. Like, I have 2 new formal dresses that I got this last pageant season that, well, I didn't get it. Actually, my friend got them for me. And I love them. They make me feel and look good. And guess what? I don't feel the need to go out and get more right away. Like, these 2 dresses, they are not a style that I normally would have worn. They are not something that I would have picked out. Before I started my transition, before I started my leaving my husband, before all that, it's not something that I would have picked out because it's something that he wouldn't have liked. He would have told me was ugly and stupid and I looked stupid in it. But they make me feel good. Like, putting them on just makes me feel like $1 million. And I don't find the need to go find more dresses. As a matter of fact, I purged all of my other pageant gear at the moment because none of those signify who I am right now and they don't bring me joy. But when I put these dresses on, they still bring me joy. That leads me to number 5. It's not about what others think. This is a big one. This is a big one in everybody's life. Okay, this is a big one certainly in my life. Cleaning out my closet, I pulled out a dress. I looked great in it. I haven't worn it in years, but my friend Jackie was like, keep it. You're never going to know. Like, you look good in it. So I hung it on the back of the door. And of course, when I would close my door, I stared at it for like a week. And it just kept lingering and gnawing at me in my mind. Like, by this time, I had lost like 50 pounds and it was really too big for me. Like, most of my clothes at the moment, I have had to tack them or adjust them. Like, I got dressed to go on a job interview and I put a blazer jacket on and I looked like I was wearing my mom's clothes. This was really too big for me. And I knew that if I was going to wear it again, that I would have to tailor it and fit it to myself. And yes, it had brought up really good memories, but I have those memories. I had the memories of when I've worn them. I probably have photos of me in it. I tossed it. I didn't toss it because, again, I bagged it up and I sent it off to ThredUp to resell because I need all the extra money I can get at this point. The truth was, it no longer brought me joy. You know, did others like it? Yeah, I did like how it had made me look. I did like it and I liked the color. I liked all of it. But as far as bringing me joy, there was like no joy with the dress anymore. It was just a dress. And here's the thing. While positive emotions from others is always important, when it comes to your personal joy and what you're wearing, what you're eating, and the people in your life and that you allow in your life and what you're doing with your life, you have to feel it yourself. It's good that you want to make others happy. It's good that you want to do things for people. It's good that making others happy makes you happy. But here's the thing, when you're doing stuff in your life, and I've learned this, and I keep going back to this, and I keep being reminded, and of course my friend keeps reminding me, are you happy doing what you're doing? Like, when I talked about redoing and relaunching my podcast, I'm like, I really need to be probably getting a second job, you know, I need to think about bills, I need to think about things. And he looked at me and he said, but does the podcast make you happy? Does doing the podcast, does the writing, does all of it make you happy? Because when I see you sitting at the computer or sitting with a notebook and scribbling down notes and writing and all this, like, you're very intense and you're very focused and you seem happy. It doesn't matter if somebody else doesn't like the podcast. It doesn't matter if, Dean never liked it. It doesn't matter whether or not truly I like it. What matters is does it bring up something positive for you? Is it good for you? And that's the truth. I mean, like he said that I've said to him, when you tell your story and when you do the things that you like and everything, you're going to reach somebody. You're going to find your people. It's going to help somebody if it's helping you. So there you go. Because here's the key to number 5. If you don't feel the joy yourself, then it doesn't much matter what others are thinking. If you're not feeling the joy, what does it matter what other people think of you? If you can't look yourself in the mirror and all these things, then what does it matter what they think? It's as simple as that. Goes on to the next concept is a part that I myself struggle a lot. I mean, if you don't like yourself and what you're doing, then it's a problem. And so we're going to deep dive a little bit deeper into decluttering because, again, this next concept is a part that I myself struggle with a lot. I mean, a massive, massive amount. And my friend tends to tell me this on a daily basis, like literally. Someone else's joy is not a substitute for your own. There you go. Making someone else happy and someone else's joy is not a substitute for your own if you're being lost in the mix. If you are dumbing down your integrity and you're bending yourself and molding yourself to make somebody else happy, you lose yourself, and that's not a substitute. Making someone else happy is not a substitute for making yourself happy. I'm not saying that you need to not care about everybody else and not care about emotions and everything else, but the thing is we're going to talk about it because we're going to go in a deep dive about decluttering, not just your stuff, but your circle, the people in your life, okay? So that's what we're going to go into next. So ask yourself, does this thing bring you joy, or do they bring you joy? It's a simple yet complicated and incredibly powerful question to ask yourself about anything and everything and everyone in your life. Make this a question in your everyday life, in everything that you do. Does it bring you joy? Decluttering your space and your social circle create the result of a calmer and clearer and more focused mind and soul that will help you move forward with your plans and stick to them. That's the truth. So now that we've talked about decluttering your things, we're going to take a deep dive into decluttering the people, because decluttering your circle of friends can save your energy and peace of mind. Okay, so this is something that I had to do when I went through the divorce and when I left Dean, is decluttering of people, which my friend Dana really helped me with this. Dana I had not talked to in quite a long while, because of a falling out that she had with another friend, but she really didn't have it, that the other friend did, and it was a whole thing. But anyway, here is the thing most people assume. They assume that we need more in life in order to be happy, to find meaning and get rid of stress and anxiety, but it's just the opposite. The truth is, we need to choose less over more in order to save ourselves from unwanted worries, from living a complicated lifestyle. You'll hear and find a lot of information about decluttering your possessions all over the internet, all over books, all that sort of stuff. You're going to find all kinds of things about decluttering your possessions. But what about your circle of friends? And why is this concept and practice so important when you're starting a new chapter in your life? Why is it so important not only to go through your things, but your social circle and the people that you allow in your space and your time? Let's talk about it. Again, there's 5 concepts, but I'm going to start off with this, okay? I'm going to start off with a scripture, which I haven't done. I didn't do in the last podcast, but I do, because I do study a lot. I've spent a lot of time this last 6 months in Bible study and doing things like that, trying to get back to that. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals." So let's talk about this in 5 concepts. Number 1, you waste a lot of energy dealing with toxic people. See, I had to learn that. You waste a lot of energy. You know what I've noticed since the last 6 months, and even my friend has noticed, I freaking get up at 6 and 7 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, not every day, but I do. I have more energy. And yes, I've lost a little bit of weight. I walk the dog twice a day, all these sort of things. I found that once I cut off toxic people, I kind of felt like I had more energy. I didn't regret talking with people as much during the day. So number 1, you waste a lot of energy dealing with toxic people. To really get to the core of this, we need to define toxic people, okay? There are those people around you that are negative, that just being around them, you feel this pressure and this weight on your chest and anxiety. These people only think about themselves and require a lot of your attention. They're the energy vampires in your circle. They can always argue. You can always argue with them, but in the end, they still want to be right. It doesn't matter what you're arguing about. It doesn't matter if you're right. In the end, they always need to be right. They always have to have that last word. You can argue with them, but in the end, they got to be right. They got to get that last word in. They don't compromise. And often, they choose to upset you and make you feel inferior. So I noticed this with Dean a lot, and I noticed this with my friend that I had to cut out. I would argue with them and debate with them, and when they felt themselves losing the grip and losing the argument, which really a lot of times wasn't an argument until they twisted it into an argument, they started to make me feel inferior. They would start calling me names, and they would start belittling me and making me feel very stupid. The result of the time spent with them, what is the result of the time spent with them? Truly, they made you feel miserable. They make you feel miserable. to be around them, and to just be around, because they're like vampires draining your very life's blood and soul. There's no way to win with them. And frankly, you know, and I know, life would be so much easier if we just stopped communication. And that's what I had to do. And here's the kicker. The thing is, maybe this is someone you have a very strong connection with. And if you need to cut them off, you feel like you may owe them an honest explanation. But it's perfectly normal for people to grow apart, even if this person has been with you your whole life. Even if you thought you'd be with them for the rest of your life, like a spouse. This purging process is hard because these are people that you sometimes thought are always going to be there for you through thick and thin. And when push came to shove, they weren't. But guess what? You don't owe them a never-ending connection or spot in your life. Okay? Overall, it's our job to keep our happiness and peace of mind and lives simple, not anyone else's. So don't feel bad in having to tell a person goodbye if it's time for them to go. It's as simple as that. Number 2, may seem selfish, but it's something we all need more of sometimes. Okay? You'll have more time for yourself. Do you feel a void inside of you? One of the best ways to fill it is to forgive yourself and to stay mindful. You need to heal your inner self and embrace self-love by spending more time alone reflecting. And guess what? In the last 6 months, I have had more time alone to reflect than Lord knows I have had in a very long time. And so I have done a lot of that in the last 6 months. Okay? To live a truly meaningful life, you should strive to strengthen your relationship with yourself. You know, RuPaul says it best. How can you love someone if you don't love yourself? I mean, there is a truth to that. But also, when you find that one person that you're supposed to be with in your life, that soulmate, even if you don't feel like you completely love yourself, they love the parts of you, all the parts of you, even the parts that you don't love, even the parts that you don't get. They love the good and the bad, and the way that you kind of get through the bad and accepting the bad in yourself and trying to fix yourself and inner peace is just spending some time to yourself. So let's face it, having too many friends is time consuming and exhausting. Let me say that again. Having too many friends is time consuming and exhausting. Some will always be negative, some will always play the victim, and dealing with them takes a lot of your time, energy, and attention. Without them, you can set aside daily me time. Create new healthy rituals and habits for yourself to start and end your day with creative and inspiring and positive activities. And things like meditation, journaling, prayer time, working out, and reading. Take time during these activities to visualize yourself being more confident and successful. My friend always tells me that confident me is scary. Like, that is one thing that he enjoys about me, is when I was confident. In the last 6 months, I have not had a lot of confidence, but I've been slowly gaining it back because I've been taking more and more time, obviously, to write and to work through my podcast and everything else. And it has brought up a lot of my life coaching training and a lot of the things that I was recapturing, the me that I had lost in the last 19, 20 years. By taking these times for yourself at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, you're going to find yourself to begin to feel more confident in your own skin, like I have been feeling. You'll begin to get more clear about your issues and about the things you truly desire in life, like what your actual goals in life are. And spending this time with yourself, you'll find out that you're worthy of love and that you won't let others put you down anymore. Like, you don't need to. And the sad truth is, having too many friends results in finding no time for yourself and you being overwhelmed with other people's problems, which is what I found. I found that I spent more time focusing on other people's problems and other people's issues and what they needed done, and being here for this person and that person and this person, than myself. I always put everyone else first. Once you start decluttering your circle, you'll find a peace and balance in your life. So keep your circle small. Number 3, being constantly criticized is exhausting. Let's face it, it's exhausting. Right now, I'm going to tell you something you're already afraid of, And I know I was. Others are already judging you all the time, okay? That is like my worst fear is I'm being judged. I mean, that is one of my worst anxieties and fears is that I'm always being judged constantly. Even if you work hard to compartmentalize this and to deal with it, this influence still affects your performance and the way of thinking that you have. And before you know it, you may end up living by someone else's standards, always seeking their approval, always answering to their expectation. I know I was for 19 years. I spent the better part of 19 years seeking someone else's approval, living what their ideal was and not embracing myself. Because every time I turned around, simple things like I folded the towels wrong, I vacuumed the floor wrong, I put the dishes in the wrong cabinet because I'm left-handed and everybody else is right-handed. All these things, like all these standards that you're never going to be able to achieve. These standards that are just so stupid, unreachable, because you will never be good enough in some people's eyes. But the harsh reality is, if you let this concept take hold, you'll end up being miserable like I was, because you won't be able to be or do what you want to be or do in your own life. And again, those standards that you are now living by somebody else's standards, they're always going to raise the bar 1 inch more, 1 inch more. And it's always going to be unattainable. It's never going to be good enough. I lived that way for 19 years, no matter how I adapted, how I changed, what I did, my hair, my everything. You know, I was never good enough. It was somebody else's standard. Like, I know that if you've seen my pictures, I've had long hair and everything. I love I miss my long hair. I miss it so much, and I'm working on growing it back. But part of releasing my marriage and everything, yes, my hair was thinning and everything else. For 19 years, I was told I could not cut my hair. I couldn't cut my hair. That's not the way I like it. He liked it, and he wanted it a certain way, and kind of cutting it kind of released some of that negativity. And now I'm kind of ready to grow it back. I've been trying to grow it back. I've actually been busting out some of my long wigs and everything else. So if you see photos, you'll see me with some of them. But anyway, I digress. You can make sure that you don't end up like this by eliminating all the people in your life that don't support you, those that don't accept you. The real you. Not that you that you put out for everybody else. I'm talking about the real you, and they don't accept you. Eliminate those who aren't there when you need them, and those who aren't even trying to talk to you and help you seek out and achieve your goals and dreams too. So here's the deal, is you can help people seek out their goals and dreams. You can talk with people and you can have a dialogue with people, but if you have people in your life that aren't even interested in talking to you, all they want to do is talk at you and talk about what they need and their wants and goals and desires, not what do you like, what do you want? You know, I have a really big problem with saying I want something, or I like this, or can I have this, you know, and it's very infuriating. It's infuriating to my family. It's infuriating to my friend that, you know, Christmas just happened, and it's like, what do you want for Christmas? I don't know. I don't know what I want. Like, nobody has really ever asked me what do I want and actually meant, what are your goals and dreams? Part of what we sit up and talk about sometimes is our goals and dreams and aspirations. And he has goals and dreams and aspirations, and sometimes you get sidetracked, but you always have those goals, dreams, and aspirations. And he knows what my goals, dreams, and aspirations are, and that part of that is this podcast. And I kept setting it aside, and he was finally like, you need to do this. You sit here and listen to my goals, and we're sitting here putting down ways in order to achieve my goals, and how can you help me? Like, I understand as a life coach, this is what you're doing, but you're not my life coach, you're my friend. What about your goals and dreams? We can't set those aside. You know, you need to be able to do those yourself. So if you got people in your life that aren't talking with you and listening to you and hearing you, that's the big thing, hearing you, not just listening, hearing and helping you, then they don't need to be there. They're a roadblock. That leads to number 4. Number 4 is you'll reach your goals sooner. If you eliminate people out of your circle, you're going to reach your goals sooner. Because let's face it, there are some people in your surroundings preventing you from moving forward. Didn't I just say that? They're a roadblock. They are a distraction. albeit sometimes a fun distraction, but a distraction nonetheless on your way to success, okay? And you don't need them in your life bringing you down. If they aren't there helping you, there's no reason for them to be there. Now, granted, everybody does have their own lives, their own goals, their own dreams, their own everything. But if they're not there to be a cheerleader at the very least and really cheer you on, and not behind your back saying that you're not going to achieve certain things, I knew that in 2019, when I was competing and my friend was there with me and everything else, she had been there, quote unquote, supporting me and being there for me and helping me. But when I didn't walk away with a national title for however many times, and I didn't reach a goal that she thought I could, she said, well, they keep asking me if I'm going to compete, blah, 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 blah. And I finally told them, well, I can't compete because I just beat you, and that would I would make you feel horrible because I'm better than you. You were there in my corner, supposedly supporting me this entire time, but in the back of your mind, you were always thinking you were better than me, and there was no way that I could ever be good enough. So you really weren't helping me reach my goal. You were there to watch me fail and to tell me how much better you were, and that's not right. It was always a big thing for me about competing and not winning, letting people down, and now it's like, am I going to compete in 2022? And my friend keeps telling me, you need to compete, and maybe my head would be in the game more and better than it had been in the past, and I wouldn't have all those distractions, the negative people, and someone in my corner, whether he's actually physically there or not, cheering me on, may make all the difference. I don't know if I'm ready for that. But the fact is, you're going to reach your goals sooner if you let those people out of your life. You'll eventually find out, once you start avoiding these people, you'll begin to feel more complete. You'll begin to find your way back to your own path, and you will get closer to your goals by taking focus on them every day. That's the truth. If you don't have all these distractions and roadblocks and people pulling you every which direction, my friend has a really big problem with me always pulling myself from something I'm doing to help him or help other people, not focusing on myself and not focusing on my goals. And again, part of achieving what you want in life is taking some time to yourself and focusing on yourself. A big part of my 19 years was, yes, a wife is supposed to be a helper. They're supposed to make life easier for you. They're supposed to be your other half. That soulmate, that person you're supposed to be with, is supposed to be all of those things. They're the things that you're not. But the problem is, a better part of my last 20 years was spent dropping everything in my life, including job, and walking out on them because what someone else needed done, no matter how simple it was, they needed it done right away, and they couldn't be bothered to do it themselves. They couldn't be bothered to take the time to do it themselves, and so I had to take the time out of my project and my time in order to do it for them, and that's not fair to me. I'm starting to realize how much more I could have achieved in life if I would have just said no and put my hand up. Now, I'm not horribly old. I'm 42. There's still time for me to achieve these goals because I'm not starting over at square one. I'm just revamping, okay? Finally, we're going to talk about number 5 because I just sort of talked about it a little bit. Number 5, you'll be able to dedicate more time to the people that matter. Here's the thing that no one wants to hear. Only a few of your friends are really and truly worth it and deserve your precious time and energy. And yes, your time and energy are precious, so own it. Sure, chatting with a dozen new, exciting people may be just that, exciting, but long term, it can drain your energy. Once you rid yourself of the connections that don't nourish you, you'll find a handful of close, encouraging friends, and the time to dedicate spending time with them more often to deepen your relationships with them more. And who knows, maybe one of those persons that you've been neglecting and overlooking and putting on the back burner because this friend needed this attention and that friend needed that attention, and you're now beginning to foster all these relationships that you kind of held at arm's length, kind of like with my friend Dana, who's back in my life. You may find that person that you've been putting on the back burner and not really dedicating much time to or commitment to or anything like that could be your forever soulmate. And you just never had that time or energy or focus to work on deepening that connection and to see where it led. The strongest partnerships and marriages are built on a firm foundation of friendship, trust, and equality. Which is a sneak peek into next week's episode topic, relationships versus partnerships, okay? This is the deal. Decluttering your circle of friends lets you open up time and opportunity to spend with those people in your life that really and truly want to be in your life and that you want them in your life, okay? It's not just that you need to want them in your life. They have to want to be in your life. They have to want to encourage you and be a part of all of those things, okay? That means all the difference. Like, codependency is that I need you, I need you, I need you. It's that childish I need you, that teenage I need you, not the I want. We sit and have a long discussion, my friend and I, a lot about I need versus I choose to be with someone is such a deeper meaning than you need to be with them. And we both have a big issue with that, with needing to be needed, if that makes sense, and all that sort of stuff that we got to release, because wanting to be with somebody is so much more deeper, okay? I don't want to really delve into next week's episode, but next week's episode is going to be about relationship versus partnerships. So I'm not going to get too heavy and deep in that, okay? And if you've noticed, I'm actually writing things down and doing a lot more research and trying not to be as off the cuff as I usually was, because it tends to ramble. So if I'm stumbling a little, it's because I'm reading, writing, and I'm getting used to that. So I do apologize. But I promise you, it's going to get smoother. It's going to get better. But to wrap up this week with some final few thoughts, you also still need to reserve time with yourself on your own so you don't feel stressed out and emotionally exhausted. So yes, you do have your circle of friends. You need to foster your new circle of friends and foster and deepen those connections, but you still need to reserve time with yourself, okay? Your true small circle of friends and partners will understand and encourage this need. If they're really in it for you and want to be with you and understand you and want the best for you, they're going to understand your need for some time by yourself. Everybody needs time to themselves. So if you're like me, it may be time to be honest with yourself and examine those that you allow around you, and that you may actually find, like I did, those people around you, many of them may actually be toxic for you, and they just aren't a good fit for the lifestyle that you want for yourself. And to be honest, some of the people you purge are going to hurt, okay? It's going to hurt. It's going to force you to open up some wounds that need to heal. They need to heal properly. But you need to do this in order to keep moving forward in the right direction. Because this person may even be your spouse. Because I know one of the people I needed to purge was that, okay? So it's going to open up some bad stuff and some things that are just on the surface that you don't want to deal with. But guess what? You got to in order to keep moving forward, okay? But just remember, you got this. Don't overthink it too much. Be strong, be direct, and let them know it's time for you to move on and move forward with your story, okay? I want to thank you all for listening. I'll talk at you next week. Vaya con Dios.